listening to Jai Long, and this is Make Your Break. Whether you're a big-hearted creative or an aspiring entrepreneur, let's take action on your dreams, reconnecting you with your why and giving you the how. I'm here to dish out actionable mindset tips and fun industry secrets to help you blow up your biz. From eye-opening reality checks to motivational gold, no two episodes are ever the same. So tune in weekly, skip the FOMO, and let's dive into the deep together. Hey, I have Molly here. Molly is a wedding photographer. She's an educator, and she actually teaches a lot for creative entrepreneurs and photographers on the business side of things. And I'm really excited to dive in and talk a little bit about what a lot of creative entrepreneurs do wrong, because we do a lot of things where we talk about, I guess, like how to build and what we're doing right. But sometimes we kind of get blindsided by not seeing what we're actually doing wrong or where we're leaving money on the table and things like that. So I'm really excited. How are you, Molly?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm really good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Hey, could you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you made your break?
Yeah, so I have been a wedding photographer almost a decade now. I didn't
Wow.
start I didn't start as a wedding photographer. I honestly don't even know how I started doing photography in general. It was something I always loved doing, just like a lot of other photographers, we always like had a camera growing up. I was the girl with the digital camera, all those things. And my brothers had always said, you should do photography. You can make a career out of it. And I was like, I feel like that's not a career. You can't do that. And then I had been working at a hair salon and just doing that type of stuff. I was like managing, I didn't do hair. And one of the girls that I worked with wanted like a boudoir session or boudoir or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I guess I can do that. And that literally started it all. And then all of a sudden someone wanted wedding photos and trusted me and we went with it. So
Amazing.
that's the start of the wedding photography career. And then I would say about 4 years ago or so, I started into the education of things. And now I co-host a photography workshop for women, which is amazing. It's brought us to so many amazing places. We were just in June, we're in Alaska. Now we're going to Hawaii in January. I can't tell you where we're going after that, but yeah, lots of good stuff.
Can you tell me why you got into the education, and was there something missing that you wanted to bring to the table, or was there things that people weren't doing that you wanted to help them with?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like it was one of those things a lot of people asked me about, like, hey, do you offer mentor sessions? And it was like, I'm not a teacher. Like, I can't teach this. I don't even know how I taught myself this. And then just with throwing the idea around, I was like, okay, I made a lot of mistakes that I feel like I could get other photographers to prevent making. And I just really wanted to help. I see a lot of like lack of community, even in an industry that we are fighting for that community. I still see lots of lack of it.
Mhm.
And that's my entire drive behind education. And just there's so much room at the top for everyone to find success in their own way. And I'm here for it. And I just want to be in everyone's corner and, help them find that success. And it's really cool being able to like offer mentor sessions, but then also like hands-on workshops that we can travel and just really help people like pursue those goals and dreams and make it happen.
Why for you was it important for you to create workshops and education specifically for women and supporting women in the industry?
Yeah, so honestly, I think as a woman, it was like really, really important for us to create a space with like-minded creative women and just really like build that community up and build that just the passion behind where we even started and where it came from and why we're photographers. And I think it just like kept growing from there. And honestly, a lot of like what voyage workshops, a lot of what we do is it's not so much about the styled shoot and making, this Pinterest perfect shoot and all these elopements. And of course, we set up shoots and all that good stuff, but the main thing is really just creating a safe space, because we found, Jessica and I, my business partner, we found what really drove our business forward was having each other. And we really wanted to create that space for people.
That is so cool. And do you see like huge results and a lot of people coming to your workshops that are really thankful for that space where they can come there and feel safe and share with everybody?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we haven't had a workshop where people weren't like in tears and hugging and just loving on everyone. And I mean, obviously we always have dance parties. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
and also like every workshop we've always had someone come back. So every workshop we have like repeat workshoppers, which is super fun. And
That's a huge
now that
compliment,
we're,
isn't it?
yeah, I love it. It's like, okay, we did something right. And now being, I mean, we're both from Michigan. So a lot of our workshops have had like, everyone from Michigan. And now in January going to Hawaii, it really opened that up. So we have a lot of girls coming from all over the US, which is really exciting. Yeah, we have so much good stuff planned. I'm excited.
It's really cool. We always talk a lot about like niching down or niching down, and
Uh-huh.
even like creating workshops that's for women only. It does niche you down a little bit more, and it probably makes it easier for you to advertise, to market, and to draw the people in that need that space when they
Yeah.
need it. So for you, was it really conscious to make sure that you're creating something that was completely different to what everybody else was doing, and being true to exactly what you want to do and the people you want to attract?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there's so many obviously workshops and options out there, and we just really wanted to like own who we were and our values behind like what we were doing and what we stood for, and just really create that space. So yeah, I feel like I almost even like lost the original question that you asked, but it's just like it's so rewarding from both ends of it. Our
Mm.
attendees just feel so rewarded afterwards. And, that comes back to us too, just feeling so fulfilled after like, okay, we are making this happen for people. Like we are even just seeing like, okay, now all these people have friends in the industry. It's like, oh, we created that. We helped create that space.
It's so cool. I think like as an educator, and not enough people talk about it, but the reward that you get for creating that
Yeah.
space or for getting people results is like so next level, isn't it?
Yeah. It's insane. Like when people tell me like they hit a goal I'm just like, holy
Wow.
shit. Like, can I swear on here? I don't even
Yeah,
know.
definitely. Shit.
Perfect. I have the mouth of a sailor. But yeah, it is so fun to just be able to like make it happen for people, or not even, I mean,
Mm,
obviously I'm not the one doing it, but I'm just like cheering them on, and giving them the right tools to be able to make it happen.
yeah. So let's dive into what a lot of creative entrepreneurs, some of podcasts is not just for wedding photographers, it's for anyone that's going out there and they
Yeah.
want to, create something for themselves. There's influencers that listen, there's designers, there's musicians,
Yeah.
and everyone. So love to talk about like what a lot of creative entrepreneurs are kind of doing wrong without even knowing it.
Yeah. And it's my favorite topic because I love telling people what they do wrong.
Yeah, and sometimes it's
uh
just like a little mindset shift, isn't it? So it's like, oh, I didn't
and
even
that
think about that.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. I mean, obviously kidding, I don't, like telling people what they're doing wrong, but I love just being able to help
Mm,
creative entrepreneurs, especially photographers, obviously as a photographer, just things that they could be doing better, and just
mhm.
like twisting that mindset. And like it's just really all about like protecting themselves in their business and like protecting their heart behind it too.
Okay, cool. Molly, how many tips have you got for us today?
Okay, well, I said five, but when I mentioned what topic we should talk about, you said why stop at five, so it just kept going. But I feel like I don't want to dive into like the logistics of things where like, oh,
Totally.
you should use a CRM, or you
Mm.
need a routine and you need a schedule, or like don't respond to DM inquiries. I feel like I want to take it in a different realm of like, let's protect your mindset and create a clearer perspective with like navigating the world of creative entrepreneurship.
That's what we want to hear.
Yeah. So, okay. I feel like the first one is huge and obviously everyone talks about it, but like the whole idea of competition and comparison is just unreal, and it's avoidable, but it is also like it hits close to home, I think, for a lot of people. And it's a work in progress, you know, like even I to this day am always like, okay, reminding myself that this isn't, you know,
Mm.
it's not a competition between me and anyone else. It's me, you know.
So what kind of negative effects do you think this has on people when, especially when they're building their business?
Well, I really just feel like it keeps you at step one. It's like you can, you know, you start moving forward, you start hitting some goals, whatever, you're pursuing your dreams. And then as soon as like that little, you know, bug that's like, ooh, you should compare yourself to that, or how come you're not doing that, or why didn't you book that, or, you know, why didn't you create that? And they did. It's like, as soon as that happens, like you go 5 steps backwards, and it's never progressing you forward, you know?
Do you think you can pretty quickly identify someone when they're stuck in the routine of like them competing or comparing themselves to others, opposed to a creative that seems like they're just on their own path and they're doing their own thing?
I mean, yeah, I feel like, I mean, you have to know people though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
Totally.
I think a lot of the confusion with all of this is we're all like hidden behind screens, and it's this world of social media, and we all know that it's not 100% real all the time. And I think that's the hard thing, is you can't really ever know unless you know.
Mm.
So it's like, you know, when I talk to some of my mentees and I can see, you know, oh, well, I didn't do that good enough, or I didn't do that. It's like, well, why do you feel that way? And it's usually
Yeah,
that's when
compared
I'm
to whose
like,
standards?
exactly. I feel like it's always like, okay, I know exactly where you're going with this. Like, who are you comparing yourself to online? You know, who are you really competing with? Because I feel like as soon as like there's someone even in your bubble of competition, it's like, what's the point? You know?
Mm. You know what's
And
interesting? I think
yeah.
being naive sometimes is really good. You know, like I know for
Hmm.
myself when I first started, I don't know if many
Yeah.
people know this, but I thought I was the best wedding photographer in the world, even though I just picked up the camera because I didn't know there was other wedding photographers. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And not until I started finding other wedding photographers and realizing how good they were is when I started feeling more inadequate. But I think sometimes when you're like very naive, you have that sense of playfulness and you
Yeah.
can have that fresh energy all the time. And you need to get back into that space, I think.
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss. I think
Absolutely.
and you know, some people do certain things where like, you know, they'll silence some people on Instagram, or don't follow certain people that like you
Mhm.
feel like it's that trigger for you or whatever. But I just think so many photographers or creative entrepreneurs are focusing so much and worrying so much about what other people are doing. Like if I sat here and worried about all the accomplishments you're making, you know what I mean? Then like, what
Totally.
am I doing? I'm like missing the moment for me to be able to accomplish things.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
it's like one thing specifically, and I feel like I hear all the time, is like photographers worrying about people's booking numbers and like their calendars being full, you know, because we're always like, everyone's always like, oh, calendar's full for 2022, or, you know, I'm almost booked up for the whole year. And people immediately see that on their stories and they're triggered by it. And we talked about it in Alaska at Voyage. And I was like, you realize like they didn't post that for you. They posted that for their clients to see. Like all of the
Mm.
things you have to remind yourself, like all the things that we're posting, it's not for other people in our industry to see, obviously, unless you're an educator. But like, you know, if you're a photographer posting about your calendar, it's not so you can shove it in another photographer's face. If that is you, then maybe that's like, you know, maybe that's triggering you right now and that's an issue on your end. But you know, obviously a lot of the time we're just like trying to educate our clients of like, hey guys, I only have one wedding left for the year, or, you know, but it's also like reminding yourself that your booking number is different than my booking number. You know, my
Mm.
number of sales goals is different than your sale goals. And it's like a lot of the time, you know, you don't know the situation they're in, you know, and even just
Definitely.
photography speaking, it's like Well, they could be a mother or a father, and like they have family back home, so they don't work on the weekends, or they don't, they only book one session a week, or maybe they only want 5 weddings for next year. It's like, what's the point of even comparing? It's like comparing apples to oranges. Like if we just sit in our own little bubble, and
Mm.
focus on that, I feel like we can really actually propel ourselves forward and like go after it.
There's also like you can use it as energy as well, because like if you're anything like me, Molly, like when I see someone doing something big and courageous and booking up the calendars and stuff like that, I have so much admiration, because I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, man, I know how hard I show up and work, and I'm working my tail off, and I go for it. I'm relentless. I got big goals. And when
Yeah.
someone's got a big goal and they hit it, I see that and I'm like, well, I know how hard I've been working. So if they've outdone me, man, that is some dedication.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to sit here and be like, you shouldn't post, your accomplishments on the internet. Like I want
Mm,
to hear about them. I want to cheer you on. And I feel like if I'm posting one of my accomplishments and it's triggering you, that's on you. That's not on me. And I think it's really just a
yes.
huge mindset flip. And it's like, and I mean, that might be harsh for someone listening, but it's like, come on, get your shit together. Like this is about how you can get that accomplishment too. Like we all can do
Mm.
it. We all can have our calendars booked. We all can, can create these things that we want to create and like make it happen. And I think a lot of it is just like a switch.
It is a switch. And once it flicks you, it's so much easier, and it's so
It's
liberating because you
it's
think so
literally that
differently.
like it's literally like that oh moment, like or like a
Yeah.
oh shit moment.
I think it's also you got to be comfortable in your own crap as well. Like I think sometimes like with the comparison game, if someone shows me like, oh look, this educator's doing more than you, or this photographer's got better photos, I'm like, I know they do, and I understand that and I appreciate that. Like, but they're not me, and I'm trying my
Hmm.
best of where I am, and it might not be the best, but it's the best
Yeah.
of what I can do right now with my capabilities and stuff. So I think owning your
Right.
own shit like that is really important as
Right.
well.
Right. And I feel like that like kind of leads me into like my next one is like
Yes.
trying to be like everybody else. Like if you just be you and do what you do best instead of, I don't know if I would ever want to have a podcast of my own, but like I admire you so much for having this. And it's like, okay, well, if I found out that that's something I want to do, awesome. But like, if not, like, I'm going to cheer you on. And I think, so many people just try, they see someone successful and they're like, okay, well, I want to do that. I want to be that. What did
For
they
sure.
do? What can I do to be them? And it's like, no, like I found the success that I found, like because I was me, because that's my superpower. Like that's your superpower. And it's like I just wish I could shake everyone.
One of the things that I say inside like my course, the business map, is like everyone in that room has the same strategies, my strategies. Everyone has the same knowledge now, like everyone's doing the same thing, but you'll watch everyone will get different success because it's not
Yeah.
my strategies, it's the person that implements it. So that is the most important thing. And so anyone could try and become me or replicate my success, but it just won't happen. They can either not do as well, or they're going to evolve what I do, but it's going to be based on their personality, their experiences, how much they show up like with their personal brand, how they can move something,
Yeah.
or there's so much in there, and it's so important to know that.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like even just like focusing so much on like, I mean, obviously we're business owners, you have to focus on numbers at some point. But when like sole your sole focus is on numbers in like social media,
Mm.
rather
It's a
than
pretty
like,
empty life.
yeah. And it's like, I feel like it's just, but that's the world we're living in. It's like, whatever day it was that Instagram shut down, I was like, thank God, this is
Yeah.
great. And it's so, like you said earlier, like it's so much better just being more naive and like not,
Mm.
I just, when I like catch myself comparing or like just getting that like weird feeling of like, oh, well, someone's doing better than me. It's like, okay, you just need to stop scrolling today. Like
Yes.
you need to read a book. You need to, listen to a podcast or binge some shows, Squid Game, it's fine. But like, stop
Molly,
scrolling, because that's
I
the butt
think
of
it's really good to
it.
know that you also go through that, and so do I. And so there's so many times when
Yeah.
I'll look at something on social media and I'm like, oh my God, this person's bringing out a course and it's probably going to be better than mine. And like, look what they're doing. And I start,
Hmm.
getting down about it. And then I'm like, wait a second, man. It's only because you're looking at someone else's stuff. Go back to the drawing board and look at your stuff, own
Yeah.
your own
Yeah.
stuff.
Exactly. And I love that. And it's so true. Like, no matter what your numbers are or what you've created or how big your platform is, it's like, we all still go through this. We all put our pants on the same way, and we still deal with that type of shit. And it's hard. I feel like it's always a work in progress, but it's almost like you need to put post-it notes everywhere of like reminders, like, hey, you're better than that. Hey, it's just a mindset. It's just reminding yourself over and over and over again. As soon as you feel triggered by something, it's like, ask yourself why you're triggered by that. Are you envious because you don't have it, but you want it? Or are you envious just because they have it, but like, you actually don't even want it? If you really want it, figure out how to get it. But like, sometimes I feel like I'm envious of like all these people booking up all their weekends for like all these mini sessions. And I'm like, I have to remind myself, like, I don't want mini sessions. I don't work on the weekends unless it's a wedding, because then it's just reserved for family and friends and my downtime and my me time, and it's like, we get so concerned of like what everyone else is doing. And then we realize like, oh wait, I don't actually even want that. Like, slow my roll, or if you actually are envious because you want it, you're like dying to have it. You want that success. You want that, number of bookings. It's like, okay, well then shut the phone, shut the laptop. Let's figure out how to do it,
If you really want it, figure out how to get it. There you go. Drop mic.
Yeah.
You killed it.
Yeah.
As soon as you
I
said
don't
that, I
know.
was like, yes.
It's really not that hard. Like, I mean, I think you just need someone to like give you that like shoulder shake, like, you got it, stop worrying about other people. So next one, this is a big one. And this one gets me going.
I love
Okay.
it.
Taking things personally. I feel like, I mean, that's not even just creative entrepreneurs, but I think right now, obviously, speaking of creative entrepreneurs and photographers, is like just taking things so personally. And my biggest example is getting ghosted. How do you feel about getting ghosted?
Me personally?
Yeah. Or people getting mad about getting ghosted.
Oh, personally, like, I don't care if I'm getting ghosted. Like, there's like a little bit of relief in me because I'm so busy all the time. So I'm like, oh man, I'm glad they didn't get back, because whenever I lose something as well, I know there's a better and bigger opportunity, and there's a reason why
Yes.
that one didn't work out.
Yes.
So I'm very at peace with it. But I do think I do see the frustration, and I do understand, and I have empathy for that frustration. But I also know that like not everyone's going to be your fit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's
Well,
a
and I
reason why they're
mean,
not getting back to you.
yeah, for sure. And of course, it's that level of like respect, and we want someone to just be like, hey, you're out of our budget, or hey, we decided to go in a different direction. However, I feel like a lot of people avoid conflict, and that's most of the time what they're doing in that sense. It's like,
Oh, totally.
I don't know how to let her down, so I'm just gonna avoid it completely. It's like literally dating. Like, that's why people ghost people. And so of course, you might get frustrated, and obviously I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, I don't even remember when people ghost me. I'm like, oh, I forgot that person inquired. And then weeks or months go by and they reach out again. I'm like, oh, I'm booked out. Like, I forgot about you.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it though, it's like, it's not personal. Like, they have
Not at
their own
all.
shit, you have your own shit. And I think it's one thing to get frustrated, like, oh, I had that date booked for you, or it's certain circumstances might be like you sent them the whole contract or whatever, and that's super frustrating. But I think a lot of the time it's like not that big of a deal. And like you said earlier, like it's just opening more doors for you. It's like, let's close one door, open the next, and
allow something else to
Find a
come in.
different way to fill that space. Yeah. Yeah.
I think,
Because
well, I think it's
you can
interesting
go.
because, like, well, sometimes we do see ourselves as the center of the universe. We forget our clients,
Hmm.
right? Like, they are the center and they are contacting lots of people for lots of different reasons. And
Yeah.
it's not like it's their job. It's like, for me, when I organized my wedding, I didn't want to organize my wedding. It was getting back to extra emails on top of work and stuff was a big deal. And so,
Mhm.
what I do know is, with my perfect client avatar that I'm always thinking about, is they're young professionals that live in the city. And guess what? They literally hate getting on emails and always emailing
Yeah.
back. And I understand that they're busy. And so I have that empathy
Yeah.
for my client. I'm like, oh, I know you're not going to get back to me. You don't need to get back to me. That's totally fine. So I hope you find
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I couldn't agree more. And same with, I'm like literally planning my own wedding right now. And I'm pretty sure I've ghosted vendors already. Just even thinking
Totally.
about it, I'm like, oh, oops. And I could not even tell. It was probably like a bathroom trailer, but it's fine. I probably still ghosted them. And you know who ghosts the most
Who?
is
You.
photographers. No, photographers. The amount of people that like inquire for Voyage and then don't
Oh,
respond
man.
after we send them.
Okay,
I'm like,
I would love to dive into this because it's the same for me. It's like all these photographers all talk about people ghosting them, and then even today, like I was emailing a couple of my students like last week. I'm like, they never got back to me, or I asked people to get on my podcast. I'm like, they never get back to my email, or like whatever it is. And I'm like, man. Another thing is when people say like, you need to charge what you're worth, but a lot of photographers don't pay what people are worth, and I think that's really interesting. So they don't pay the second shooters or the associate shooters, or maybe a workshop or a mentor or like a course or whatever it is.
mhm.
And then that always blows my mind. In the same sentence, like people asking for a discount, they ghost in my emails, they're not getting back to me. Also, can I have a discount on my course? And also, I'm not getting back to your email. And I'm like, well, there's a reason
I
why people are treating you that way.
Yeah, and it's so I like see all these TikToks and reels all the times about like, it's funny, yeah, like I get sad when someone ghosts me, whatever. But then when it's like, let's actually get upset and attack our potential clients for
Yeah, let's
ghosting,
not do that.
then I'm like, wait, what? Like, and there's literally
Oh,
like all these viral posts that go around, and it's not like I don't half agree, but then part of me is like, why are you so pissed? Like,
mm.
I'm like, if I posted about, yeah, all the people that ghosted me, I just feel like well, I feel like we should put our focus somewhere else.
Can I actually quickly stop you on this point? Because this is probably not one of your points, but I think it's so important. I went for a
Yeah.
walk the other day with one of my wedding photographer friends, and he was telling me that he hired a designer, and the designer like was pretty standoffish, but on social media kind of treated him really crappy. So he asked for first of all, he sent in a few mood boards, and they're completely different because she was really professional. And then she made a reel of this one where it's like when the client doesn't know what they're doing and like rolls her eyes. And then so he was like, oh, okay, that's obviously probably about me because that was after the email. And then the next emails, he asked for some changes. And then she made a reel saying, like, when the client asked for some changes, and it was her diving out the window. And so he was like, man, I just feel so shit about this brand and working with this person that like I can't believe that like they're publicly shaming me like that. And I actually see photographers and creative entrepreneurs, so many of them, doing that to their clients. And it's like, who's this to? Because when I see it, I'm like, you're drawing a terrible picture. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
creating a brand of your business,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not nice. And
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely not want to be in one of your reels or part of your
Mm-hmm.
business.
Yeah. And I do think, I mean, a lot of people just find like humor in it, obviously. I mean, I've had reels that were controversial in that sense too, but it is funny being the person like seeing it on the other end and being like,
Mm,
I don't know if your bride would like that. Or, I even sometimes like I see some reels of like, I don't know, something that happened at a wedding of like the people in the aisle with the camera or something like that. And then I'm thinking like, but your bride's in the back of that and that could be your best friend. And I'm just like, I just get so
totally.
nervous about like, what is your client thinking? Or, I think there's a way to be humorous and things,
When it's not at
but
your client's expense, I think.
yeah, for sure. I think it's also like, okay, are we being funny? Are we educating? Like, what are we doing? And yeah, I think also a lot of creative entrepreneurs are creating reels to be relevant to the creative entrepreneurs that are in their industry
Totally.
instead of like actually creating video marketing for their clients. that's
Well, imagine
purposeful.
this. Imagine if that person put in a reel and made a value packed one of like how to create a cohesive mood board for your designer. And then the next one is like how to submit
Yeah.
in changes that make sense to get the best design possible. Now, that would be
Right.
mind blowing. And then that client would share it and go, look at my designer, absolutely killing it. She made this reel after I sent her an email.
Hmm.
Like that would be a different way to approach something.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It does make you think, for sure. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of people kind of get lost in that. It's like, is this going to hit? So like, is this going to land in that right industry that they're all going to share it and think it's funny? And then you don't really think of who it, you know, just could be like question mark.
Yeah. All right. Next,
Yeah.
next one. Sorry, I just took that over.
Oh my God, you're fine. Another thing sort of in that realm is like kind of what we talked about before of like ignorance is bliss. Our clients are kind of naive. They don't know our industry. They don't know what they don't know. And I think, and this happens to me still to this day, but when we get a critique from a client or we get a complaint, in air quotes, and immediately we get like super, super angry and super defensive. But in all reality, it was, did we set up the expectations? I feel like I don't think I've ever had a complaint or critique that I know that it was something I could have done on my end that could have been better. Whether it's like, even if it's my own critique, where I'm like, oh, they showed up wearing that. And it's like, well, did I educate that on them on like what tones would look best with where their like event was taking place or their photo shoot was taking place? Or, like when they ask for raws and it's like, well, and of course people don't read things, but it's like, why do we get so angry all the time when people just have innocent questions that, because they don't know.
I know. Yeah. Like when someone like complains, it's like they just put a filter on my photo and cropped it wrong. And I'm like, well, did you send them some sort of information to show them how to, or the expectations of posting those photos? Because if you didn't, I wouldn't know either how to do that. If a videographer sent me a video, I wouldn't know what crop it's supposed to be, or if I shouldn't put a filter on it.
Yeah.
It's not common knowledge, even though it's common knowledge to us.
Yeah. And I just think like we can't expect them to ask all the questions.
Mm-mm.
Like it is our job to know our job the best.
Yes.
And that's why it's like in our communication, like we need to set up all those expectations or like, and on top of that, like have an FAQ page and answer all the questions before they even have questions about it, and like, even I'm trying to think of like more examples that like, just, I feel like it happens a lot in the wedding world. It's like when they bug you, like, how long does it take to get the photos? It's like, you could have told them so many times of
why don't
how
they know
many
that?
weeks they would, yeah, like they should, it's in their contract. It should be in their email. It should be like, as soon as you left the session, like you should tell them multiple times. And I think everyone just gets really upset. And again, it's more so like, okay, just don't act on those emotions. You can have your moment of like, people are dumb, but it's like, they're really not dumb. They don't know what they don't know. And it's your job to educate them. And I think that's a huge like target that people are missing, and that you could just, answer all of their questions before they even realize that that's a question that they need to ask you.
One thing I teach in my education is like everything is your fault and you have to take responsibility for everything.
Yes.
So if it's your business and your clients are doing something or something goes wrong or someone doesn't show up or like whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. It's always your fault. And then there's a lesson learned. And it's like, for the next one, I can avoid this because now that I know there's a problem, I didn't do the right steps to overcome the problem. And of course, the problem's going to keep happening. And posting in the Facebook group ain't going to solve no problems.
No.
Trying to get validation from other people that have problems.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, sure. If you need advice or something, I don't know, seek a mentor. But I mean, there's nothing wrong, obviously, with Facebook groups. Like, yeah, it's like, let's find someone who agrees with me that is also going to be upset and will let me stay upset. I'd rather be like, call that person. I always call Jess, my business partner. I'm like, oh, this happened and I'm so angry. What do you think? And she's always like, I get why you're frustrated, but take a step back and like, yeah, like what could you do better in the future to prevent this? Like we just constantly have to remind ourselves. Yeah, like I love that you said that. Like everything's always our fault, and it's so true. Like, and I know people don't like saying like, well, the customer is always right. And it's like, they might not be right. Like there might not be like a right or wrong thing. It's more just like you could have done something a little bit better.
Yes. Love that.
Okay, here's another one. This obviously, I don't know. I guess I'll just see what you think, but saying yes to things that you should say no to. And I think a lot of people struggle with this.
I love this.
And I mean, obviously the main factor is like, yeah, I mean, the main factor is just like sitting in a burning fucking room. Like you're going to burn out. Like stop saying yes when it's like, I think it's more like a question of, okay, if I'm saying yes, is this serving a purpose in my business? And deciding like what you should be saying yes to and what you should be saying no to. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I say no to that just don't serve me in my business. I think it takes a little while to get to that point, but I mean, also everyone's different. At the beginning, I feel like I said yes to everything and anything just so I could do it and see. But it was also, I mean, it did help me figure out what I loved and what I didn't love. And I think that is a part of the journey for sure. But when you like know immediately that it's a no, I don't know why it's like something in photographers' brains that are like, ooh, but is that going to be a missed opportunity?
Yeah, I don't think many of us ever think about like if you say no to something, you're making space for something that could be bigger and better and crazier. So
Yeah.
I always say it's like a missed opportunity cost, because so many times I've been locked into something that I really didn't want to do because I was going after the money, or I really didn't want to do because, like whatever reason. And then I'm like, oh, I could have had this, or someone asked me to be on their podcast, or someone asked me to fly around the world and be at their workshop or something. And I have to say no because I'm shooting this thing, or I'm doing something that I really deep down knew I should have said no to. So I've learned that lesson.
And it's not, yeah. And it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, but I just want to say yes to both. And we have that FOMO. It's like, no, like you said yes to the thing you should have said no to, And I just, burnout is so real. And I just feel like that's the biggest one. It's like when obviously we're artists, and, we're doing what like, I don't know what the percentage is, but I feel like we're like 5% in the world, and it's like, as soon as we start like having this mundane job, it's like, then what was it all for? And it's like, you're literally driving, I don't know, I picture rain, and you're in traffic and you're like dreading going to the shoot, or you're dreading going to the meeting that you should have said no to. And it's like, yeah. And then you're going to go home and you're going to be so uninspired and so unmotivated. And then it's just like, well, shit, where do they get me? Nowhere.
Sometimes we say yes and no to the wrong things as well. Like I've noticed in my community that people start shifting from like, I want to be a full-time wedding photographer, I want to do it for, the fun, the connections and everything, to all of a sudden like, oh, I need to make money. So then they say yes to jobs that kills their soul to get a little bit more money. And then they'll say no to a job where they should have been shooting it for free because it gets it closer to their goal. And it's like, wait, why did your goal shift? Because when we had this mentor session, you said you want to be an international wedding photographer. You got an inquiry. Yes, it's for free, but it's at the location that you want. And you said yes to this job, which is not the best, not getting you anywhere, but it's giving you some money. So now you've got a disconnect between the actions you take to the goals that you actually set.
Yeah. And I think that's funny because then we're out here, we're chasing the paycheck instead of the dream that we actually wanted, which sure, we all need to get paid, but that international wedding could have got you that paid international wedding. But I think so many people are scared of saying yes to free and yes to discounts. And of course, there are times when you should say no to free and no to discounts. But if it's opening another door of opportunity for you, absolutely yes. Like if that's that next stepping stone of like, oh, if I just do a free whatever shoot, like that could get me more of that shoot. And that's what I'm dying to do. It's like, those are the things we should be saying yes to. And the stuff that like literally makes you cringe. Yeah. Oh, but their money's green. Like,
Yeah.
no.
I know. Do you have one more for us today?
I do. And this is running to the finish line. And this one, I just feel like is a good one to wrap it up on too. I feel like everyone just wants, and again, this could even be like in relation to like that comparing, because we're so heavily like drowning in the industry by scrolling all the time, but everyone wants this instant success and or gratification. And like, that's just not realistically. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. And I think a lot of it is when you sit back and like realize, like when you're like, well, I don't have that. And why don't I have that yet? And it's like, you're comparing yourself to the person that does. And it's like, okay, well, I'm in my beginning, they're in their middle. And like, why am I comparing my beginning to their middle? Or, you know, and it's like, we just rush the process so much. And obviously this could be like anything in life. That sometimes I do have to, you know, take a couple steps back and be like, slow down. Like, this is where you're supposed to be. Like, why are you, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We don't have to get there right this second. Like, you will get there. You just have to switch your mindset, put it all into a new perspective, and like, go for it. But you don't have to like skip a bunch of steps, you know?
I feel like we could jump on and do a full podcast episode just on this one subject.
Just on that. I know. That's
I'm gonna book you in for this, I think, because I've got lots to say about it as well.
Well, I feel like it was a good like little ending. But I just, yeah, I don't know. I feel like so many people rush the process of things, and we want that like we want that gold star right away. And it's like that's not what success is. It's like it's all of it put into one. It's all our failures, it's all our successes, it's all the tiny victories and tiny failures and a lot of fucking failures. And it's like, don't skip over that. Like, that's how you like own what you do. And not like, that's how people are so good at what they do, because they owned their failures and they didn't skip over them. And I just think that's really important. And again, like kind of just back to like the beginning, so we can like wrap it up in full circle. It's just like, we have to protect our hearts in this and like our passions behind why we even started. And I think that's why it's so important to like, as soon as you notice like that your mindset isn't serving you, to like make the switch, you know?
Love it. Molly, where can we find you on social media and come and say hello?
Yeah. You can find me at Molgrune, MOLLGRUNE. You can find my workshop at Voyage Workshops, then S at the end. And my website's just mollygrunewald.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing so much with us. I really, really appreciate it. And I know my listeners really appreciate it as well.
Thank you. I had so much fun. And this is tea. I thought about putting a White Claw in here, but it's tea. I was like, ooh, maybe we can party a little.
I'm drinking tea as well, so.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was so good meeting you. I look forward to our next podcast date.